My realm of coverage really focuses on Pima County and the Pima County Board of Supervisors and City Council in Tucson. So both of these local jurisdictions have been approaching the way they want to get their employees vaccinated differently through this kind of carrot stick approach, a mix of incentives and disincentives. So the Pima County Board of Supervisors is actually led with a more incentive approach. They voted to incentivize their employees to get vaccinated $300 and 3 days of leave to use as they want. On the other hand, the city of Tucson led with a disincentive approach, and they ultimately voted to give all unvaccinated city employees who weren't vaccinated as of August 24th, they voted to implement a 5-day suspension for those workers. However, the implementation of that vaccination mandate in the city of Tucson has been put on hold due to a decision issued by Attorney General Mark Brnovich on Tuesday.
So obviously, a lot of this still being worked out. What can you tell us about the incentives that Pima County is providing? Any idea on whether that did encourage some people to get vaccinated? Have you heard from anybody working for the county?
Yeah, in my conversations with county officials, it does seem like those vaccination numbers have increased. At the beginning of, when county board of supervisors were considering voting to make those incentives to put those in place, I think the county employees had about around 40% vaccination rate. And as of yesterday, they had about a 66% vaccination rate. So it does seem like that $300, those 3 days of leave are encouraging more county employees to get vaccinated.
And what about the city of Tucson? Do you think disincentives are working to try to get more people vaccinating, or is that not as effective?
It's difficult to tell. At the beginning of this process, it looks like after the city announced that it was going to be giving out these 5-day suspensions, after city employees verified their vaccination status with the city, it was about at 80% of them were vaccinated. However, I believe as of today, they're at about 83%. So it's a little bit more difficult to determine within city workers. There may just be this unmovable group of workers who just don't want to get the vaccine no matter what and are willing to challenge that in court or whatever means they can.
Let's talk about, you mentioned State Attorney General Mark Brnovich. So where does he stand right now, and what happens next with that?
Right. So the Attorney General actually issued a decision on Tuesday. He ultimately found that the city of Tucson is violating state law by imposing this vaccine mandate for its workers. And that's all based on a budget reconciliation bill that was passed in June, later signed by Governor Doug Ducey, that says no local governments can mandate vaccines. And with the passing of those legislative bills, don't take effect until 90 days after the legislative session adjourns. So this year, that would be September 29th. So the city of Tucson has kind of been racing the clock, if you will, to get as many people vaccinated under this mandate as they can before that September 29th deadline. However, the Attorney General is saying they're still violating that law, even though it's not necessarily in effect yet, because any vaccine city workers get in the meantime can't be reversed. Governor Doug Ducey also issued an executive order shortly after the Tucson City Council made the decision to mandate vaccines, saying no local governments can mandate vaccines, kind of as an attempt to fill that gap between the September 29th deadline. So ultimately, the city has stopped enforcing that vaccine mandate as they figure out the legal grounds they have here. I mean, the next step would be to take it to the Arizona Supreme Court to challenge that decision.
Nicole Ludden from the Arizona Daily Star, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.